So I'm gonna give a couple of minutes for some more attendees to join. And I will give a brief introduction and introduce our panel and moderator. Well, hello, my name is Jessica Lumpkin. I am a career counselor with the Career Success Center at UNF, as we all know, in the College of Arts and Sciences. So this is Professional You. This is a week-long career development forum that our office puts together to help students become career ready. This happens a week before the Osprey Career Fair, which is next Tuesday on October 6th from 3 to 6 p.m. It is a big event and it is virtual. As we know, COVID has kind of wreaked the habit of a lot of different things. So we definitely adapted and made the career fair virtual. So we have a lot of employers eager to talk to students about the things that they have to offer in a remote and virtual setting, and even some face-to-face employment. Sometimes the Osprey Career Fair can be a little intimidating for some students. So we have a smaller scale where students can connect with employers at the Diversity Mixer, which happens the day before on October 5th from 7 to 8 p.m. And it will be virtual as well. And both of these events, you can register through Handshake. So definitely go to your MyWings, go to Student Tools, and click on Handshake, and you'll be able to register. I want to welcome you to our event, which is called Where Are They Now? Career Tips from COAS Alumni. And so I'm going to introduce our speaker, our moderator, and our panelists. Also, I'm going to be encouraging you to, if you have questions as you're listening, please put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A that you have access to on your Zoom link. But I want to introduce you to Sarah Rosen. She is a law student. If you can wave your hand, Sarah. So Sarah Rosen is a law student at Northeastern University. She majored in at UNF International Studies and Spanish. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And then I have Abbie Bernet. She is she's in the International Admissions Office at FIU, and her major at UNF was International Studies. Wait, hi. And I have Bella Genta. She is Environmental Office at the U.S. Agency for International Development Foreign Services. And her major was Interdisciplinary Studies, which she kind of tailored to her own, and her concentration was International Conservation. And last but not least, we have our famous moderator, Vivian Senior, who is the Associate Director of the Career Success Center. So I'm going to turn it over to Vivian.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you to our panelists for joining us today to share information with students in regards to just tips and strategies that will allow them to be successful as they transition through college and into the world of work, or for some, their next step may be grad school. And as Jessica mentioned, and I'll just reiterate this is very much an event for students. So while I'll start with some of the questions to get the conversation flowing, the conversation is really for you. So as you have any questions, you are strongly encouraged to insert those, as Jessica mentioned, in the chat and Q&A. I can talk for days. I have a lot of questions, but I really want this to be a great experience for you. So please make sure that you chime in as things cross your mind that you'd like to know from our speakers. On that note, I'd like to have the speakers start by sharing some things about themselves. And I guess I'll have them do this in this way. I teach a career planning class, typically primarily freshman and sophomore level students, and I meet with students as well for career counseling. And I often get the chance to share with them one of my favorite career theories, the theory of planned happenstance. And the summarized view of this theory is things don't always work out the way you planned. And that also sometimes random things happen. And the random things aren't always so random. It's because you positioned yourself. You took advantage of emerging opportunities, and somewhere along the line, something reshaped, it altered your path, and it led to career success or a new career idea or a different career trajectory. So as you tell us more about your career, your current career, your career path since graduating from UNF and what you're doing now, if you can share that, and also share, was it planned or was it planned happenstance? Whoever would like to go first. Abbie, your mic's already unmuted, so
I'll
you
start.
go first.
Actually, Vivian, I'm so glad you said that because that's exactly what I was thinking. If there's anything I can say today, it's really that things do not go according to plan. I mean, given that COVID right now, that's example number one, but just in a professional sense, things definitely do not go as planned, and there are lots of random things that happen along the way. My last semester at UNF, I was actually doing a semester abroad in South Korea through the international, I don't think it actually exists anymore. I think there's been some rearranging, but it was the International Business Flagship Program, which was for the Coggan College of Business students. And even though I wasn't a business student, I was a student assistant at that office for 2 years and then went to South Korea. And while I was there, I had met a friend who had worked for an organization called Liberty in North Korea, which is a nonprofit based in California that works with North Korean refugees to help resettle them and just spread education about what's happening in the country. And he knew that I wanted to work at this nonprofit, and he told me, you should be a videographer at this nonprofit as an intern. And I had no experience being a videographer. I thought that'd be really cool. And I said, but I'm not qualified. And he told me to apply, and that was probably the first example of just kind of dumb luck applying for this internship, being accepted, and then moving out to California and doing videography, which is something I had never expected I would do. And from there, it taught me that I did not want to be a professional videographer, but that it was something I could use along the way. And from there, I started being really interested in graphic design, videography, social media, and things like that. And while I have continued to kind of stay in the traditional international studies route, that has been something really big that has influenced my career. And so much so I came back to Jacksonville after my internship. I was working at a nonprofit called the World Affairs Council of Jacksonville. I ultimately decided to go to grad school. So I went to Malmö University, which is in southern Sweden, and I received my degree just this year for my master's in global politics. And while I was there, I worked at the university in a similar way that I had at UNF, actually doing videography as a recruitment tool to convince other international students to come to Malmö University by interviewing professors who come from all around the world. And once I came back to the States, I did an internship in DC as part of my master's program. And my third week there, all 3 of my supervisors were let go in a major budget cut. And not only did I have no supervisors, I was told, you will now run all 3 of their programs. So I was an unpaid intern doing 3 programs. So I think there's so many little things that I'm sure Sarah and Bella will have the same kind of experience where you think, I'm in over my head, or I never thought this would happen the way it does. And everything kind of has a way of coming full circle and working its way out. And nowadays I am an international admissions officer at FIU in Miami. So I work with evaluating transcripts. So if a student is applying from, Germany, Japan, Brazil, Venezuela, wherever they're coming from, I take their transcript and make sure that it's equivalent to a US degree, as well as calculating the GPA and assisting them with collecting the necessary documents to have the F1 student visa to come and study in the United States. So there's just been so much that has been unexpected in my path, and I look back on it and I'm kind of surprised at how I got to where I am today, but also very pleased because I know these experiences, whether planned or not planned, and whether very frustrating or actually a very easy path, it has led me to where I am today, and I'm excited to see where I'll go next.
Thanks,
and
Abbie.
Sarah, Bella, take it away.
I'm happy to follow up. I think I had very similar experiences, and a lot of the pivots in my trajectory were also inspired by either internships or UNF funded and led study abroad programs. So I think from the time I was maybe like 5 years old, I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I did a lot of professional experiences and internships in that field. And I came to UNF as a coastal biology major. But in my time at UNF, I had kind of 2 different tracks of transformational experiences. One of them being I served as the student body president my junior year, totally by accident. I was asked to run as for the vice president position as a favor to a friend. I did not think we were going to win, and I also did not think I would have to assume the president's role. But I ended up really flourishing in that role and realizing that I liked working in that context. And then kind of the second transformational experience, which is really like 5 or 6, I had the opportunity while at UNF to study abroad in 5 different countries, all doing social enterprise or international development type work. They did not, the experiences or the goals of those study abroad experiences did not align at all with my coastal biology degree. But I had an affinity for travel and was basically encouraged to take any opportunity to do that, especially with the support UNF was providing at the time. So it ended up working out because I kind of saw the ways in which what I was passionate about, fisheries management and coastal conservation, was being done in other countries, and specifically developing countries like Cambodia and Vietnam. So I actually came back from a study abroad to Cambodia and Vietnam and decided that it was not going to be enough for me, or I wasn't going to feel fulfilled just basically producing research on fishery stocks in the US, and that I wanted to kind of incorporate a lot of the human development goals and outcomes that I was seeing NGOs or local partners in these developing countries working towards. So right before my senior year, I made the perhaps unwise decision to completely pivot my degree. And that's why I ended up pursuing an interdisciplinary degree, which I pitched entitled International Conservation, but I still had my, I guess, my minor in biology. From that, I started looking at graduate programs because I realized I was going to have to do a lot more learning to have the kind of impact that I was kind of envisioning, and combining both the kind of conservation passions that I had with the development passions that I had. So I sat at the Starbucks in Town Center one afternoon and I just Googled essentially sustainable development scholarships because I didn't have any money or support to go to graduate school. And I stumbled across a fellowship via the U.S. Agency for International Development, my current employer, that was due 4 days from when I found it. So I basically made a plea to all my recommenders at UNF and different professors to support me in that application process. I was really, really fortunate, despite not really knowing what I was getting myself into. I didn't really have time to think through everything. I just applied and put my name in the pot, and I was fortunate enough to be selected. So through the support of that fellowship, I attended a dual degree program, both at American University in Washington, D.C., and then the other portion of my degree, or my second MA, is from the University for Peace in Costa Rica, and it is a UN-funded university, or UN governed university. So that was an amazing experience, not only living and working in Latin America, or studying in Latin America, but actually being a part of a cohort with folks from all over the country. Like I said, my background has been in fisheries management, or it was really in coastal management, and kind of my start in the intersection between conservation and development originated in Asia. My family is Filipino, so I've always kind of had an affinity for marine resource conservation in that context that my family's from. But because of my graduate program and then different professional opportunities that were kind of presented to me, not that I think I intentionally positioned myself well for them, my career track has actually pivoted a bit more now to be in Latin America. My 2 past, I guess, professional experiences or work experiences being in Colombia and Peru. Today, I work as a Foreign Service Officer for the US government and the US Agency for International Development, and kind of my subsect or my specialty is environment work, and specifically in biodiversity conservation, both in marine and terrestrial landscapes. In that role, I design and manage programs that hope to achieve not only conservation or sustainability goals, but also human well-being outcomes, including health, food security, and national security.
Well, thank you all again so much for having me. And I'm really honored to get to be a part of this panel with all of you. Thank you both. Also, I feel like I definitely had a similar experience in that I would have never believed if someone told me when I was going into UNF that I would be in law school. I would have never thought of that. I always thought of lawyers as greedy liars, was what my parents always taught me it was their jobs. So that was never on my mind. But when I went into UNF, I was originally very interested in studying social work. And after a little bit of pushing, some folks kind of pushed me towards international affairs in Spanish, which I really, really enjoyed. I think it was so helpful just getting to know a lot of my professors. I really enjoyed getting to do like a bigger research project at the end of my time at UNF that kind of helped me learn about the kind of work I'd be interested in doing and if I would be interested in doing research long term. And when I came to finish at UNF, I felt like a lot of pressure from people to kind of be like, if you want to continue going to school, you need to just get it over with, like be done with it so that you can start working and start making money. And I felt like I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I felt kind of pressured into not trying to figure it out anymore and just choosing. So I spent like my senior year at UNF applying to social work programs and had the plan to go into a master's in social work right out of school. But the entire time I was kind of feeling like, I don't really know why I'm doing this. I kind of feel like I'm doing this because everyone's telling me I should do this. But I don't know what I see myself doing and don't feel that excited about what I see myself doing once I graduate from my master's in social work. So that was like a kind of nice realization to have, that you have to like just really stick with your gut. Because like when I originally went into UNF and wanted to study social work, I was like, that's so funny, I'm gonna end up doing social work again, and kind of knew that was something I was always interested in. But I also had that gut feeling of that I wasn't sure yet. So I think it is so important, in my opinion. I wish more people had told me to really listen to your gut, and also don't like jump into another higher education degree, especially if you're going to have to take on debt, unless you feel really confident and excited about what you're going to be doing in your master's program and you see yourself afterwards. So I was very grateful that I was able to hold off on my MSW and told them that I would get back to them, that I wanted to take some time to work. So I worked at a shelter in El Paso for immigrants and refugees seeking asylum, and then worked for another year as a paralegal and working as an advocate and among a lot of advocates in the community. I was just like amazed and so excited about the work that they were doing, and knew that that was like a place that I felt comfortable and the kind of work that I enjoyed doing. I felt like policy work, which I had been interested in, I wasn't great with. Research wasn't like super exciting to me, but getting to like represent a client in court sounded like something that felt so exciting for me. And I have felt like that gut instinct of like, why are you doing this, go away so much. And I'm so grateful that I kind of had that realization and in my second year of law school at Northeastern.
Thank you all so much for sharing your stories. I hope that our students can take a collective exhale to know that it works out, you know, that it's okay. I find that many students are often apprehensive about choosing College of Arts and Sciences majors because for some of them, there is not a direct connection to an actual career path. There's so many options and possibilities you can pursue. And then on top of that, when they declare a major in College of Arts and Sciences, they often hear negative feedback. What are you going to do with that? You won't be able to get a job. If you get a job, you won't get paid. None of which is true. I can go on and on with numerous examples of students and the majors they have and the careers they're pursuing and how in many cases their salary exceeds their peers that are in other colleges and professions. So I guess my question for you, can you speak specifically when you think about the value of the majors that you pursued undergrad while at UNF? What are the transferable skills you gained through those experiences that help sort of drive what you're into now?
I'm happy to go ahead and answer that question. I think that for me, I was deciding between a dual major of political science and international affairs, or international affairs in Spanish. And I really like, especially in Florida, I'm from South Florida, I think that studying another language with other kind of courses as well is so helpful. I'm really hoping to learn Portuguese as well, but that's something that I found like after I was done with UNF and I started looking for positions in a place like South Florida, like I was getting calls back very quickly for paralegal positions as long as I spoke Spanish. Because a lot of immigration positions, a lot of paralegal positions in general, in a space that has so many monolingual Spanish speakers or Portuguese speakers or Haitian Creole speakers, like I found that to be really, really helpful. So I would definitely recommend, if you're able to bring it up, take it up as a minor or as a dual major, or even just studying Duolingo on your own. I think that's been really helpful.
And just to piggyback off that, yeah, I definitely think the language, that makes such a big difference. And also, you know, when you have a job interview, the interviewer is not asking you, what did you learn in International Relations 101, or what did you write this paper on? They're not interested in that. They want to know, what real life skills can you bring to the table? And, you know, UNF has so many incredible study abroad opportunities. Bella said she studied in 5 countries. I studied in 3. And, you know, perhaps things have changed, but at least when I was there, it was always cheaper for me to study abroad than it was to stay at UNF, because there is such great scholarships. The sales scholarship, for instance, one, but there are lots of little ones for different colleges that people thought, you know, oh, you must be so rich if you can do that. Well, no, because honestly, you can get, you know, thousands of dollars of scholarships, which is really incredible and really something that you should look out for. But I think, you know, if an employer is asking you, will you be able to step up to the challenge? Will you be able to balance a full workload? When you're saying, you know, oh, well, I moved to South Korea and I did not speak any Korean, and I was taking, you know, Korean classes and also working at my university and also taking upper level classes at night and also doing this and that, you know, you're telling them, I've already done it. I've already been there. And while a lot of students, you know, graduate and they may have straight A's, and that's awesome and that's great for them. But when you can say, not only do I have good grades, but I've done this and that, and I've lived this experience, I've already been working, whether it's at the university or elsewhere, I think that really speaks volumes. And that's, you know, showing the interviewer that you have a lot that you can bring to the table. But I also just think taking advantage of, there's so many things at UNF, you know, with the career services, also just with clubs, student government, those are all things that you can add to your studies and make it a full package that when you are applying, you know, you're talking about lots of different ways that you're able to assist or to make a difference at that company or organization.
I'll also do a plug for UNF study abroad programs. Perhaps unsurprisingly, all 3 of us have international in our degree title, so I think this is partially to be expected. But yeah, seconding what Abbie added, it was a lot more affordable for me once I took into account the cost of living in Jacksonville and rent and other living expenses. It was less expensive for me to pay for kind of an all-inclusive study abroad experience. And I feel like I got such a different but also more in-depth type of learning out of that experience. Of course, it's fun to live and learn in a different culture and country, but it also is just a totally different type of experience than what you get, you know, being in Jacksonville on UNF's traditional campus. That being said, I know there are barriers outside of financial kind of obligations to studying abroad. So if there are like different work or family obligations that keep you in Florida or keep you in Jacksonville, like the other said, there are so many opportunities to do volunteerships or internships, not only at UNF and student government, the Environment Center, research positions, the Interfaith Center. There's also a lot of opportunities in Jacksonville, and I think a lot of these organizations that exist are perhaps unknown to a lot of students, but Google is your friend, and also sort of like the many resources that UNF provides. So I don't think there's any harm in putting your name out there, and normally folks that are eager and passionate about a subject, I think, you know, that shines through, or at least I hope it shines through. I would also like to second language. I did not choose to pick up a language because I was in like a natural science degree until my senior year, and I am so glad that I did. It has served me well in my professional life, but also my personal life. My job now, I'm required to go to language training every couple of years. So I speak Spanish, but I'm getting ready to start Bahasa Indonesian training in January, which I'm excited and also nervous for, but basically being able to prove on paper at least that I could speak a language in addition to English, and that I already, I guess, had the capacity to learn a secondary language did make me like a more attractive candidate to the agency I now work for. Apart from kind of the technical skills I got from my the biology side of my degree, like stats and natural resource management plans and forestry plans, those kinds of things, I think with the degree I chose to do, and I will say I like crafted it, but if anyone on this call is interested to know what kind of classes are comprised of that degree, I'm happy to send you that information by email. I think being able to link in like different international affairs, but also economics, but also language, and even I guess kind of miscellaneous skills like GIS or, you know, skills like that. It made me think about the problems that I think I face in my work in a much more holistic or holistic way or systems approach way. So I don't want to just focus on the technical side, because there is a lot to be gained from kind of the what is traditionally considered soft skill side as well.
Great, thank you so much. You know, did you have something, Sarah, you wanted to share?
No.
Okay, just making sure. So I noticed, and I was just looking at the Q&A, I just happened to take a peek at it, and there a question popped in, and then it just disappeared.
There's a question about graduate school and whether or not should students pursue graduate school with the international studies major. And so they just wanted questions on graduate school.
Yeah, I think it was asking something too about the number of students with an international studies major who pursues, and I don't know that you would know the exact numbers as to how many pursue, but if you can speak to the value of getting a higher level degree, and some of you have spoken to that already as it relates to your plans and what students should consider.
Well, one thing I'll just say is coming up on my senior year at UNF, I know my parents were asking me a lot, like, are you going to start to apply for grad school? And I was very adamant that I was not going to go to grad school. I think I was just burnt out from school, to be honest. And the thought of going back, and especially kind of like how Sarah had said, not knowing exactly what you want to do, that's a big ask. And I think it is worth it to take off time if that's something that interests you, and if you're not feeling that pull to go straight away to school. And that's what I did. I took off 2 years, and I think I needed that time just to have a break from school, but also to really assess what I wanted to do and to start grad school knowing that I really wanted it, because I had worked in a nonprofit, and I kind of realized once I had that real life experience that were I to only have my bachelor's, I would probably be limited to a certain level, and it would be much more difficult to rise in the ranks. And I saw that, okay, I have this supervisor who has a master's, and that's why she's in charge of me and not vice versa. And I kind of felt like, well, maybe I could be her supervisor. You know, that was almost the fuel that I needed, that, you know, one day I want to be able to have that option to rise in the ranks and not be inhibited by the fact that I only have a bachelor's. But I was very stubborn because I felt like I had a lot of experience in the real world, and I felt like that was more important than necessarily having a degree, which is why I decided if I am going to go back to school and get my master's degree, I wanted it to be this full experience. And because I was not really tied to any city or state in the US, and there was no school or program that was really calling my name, I decided to look abroad. It's also a lot of times more affordable, so that's always good to keep in mind. But I ended up applying to schools in Germany, Belgium, and Sweden, because they all had programs that I was interested in, and they also had a lot of flexibility in studying abroad, even within being abroad at that university. So for me, then going to school, I knew that I wanted it. I purposely chose a program, global politics, very broad, so that when I did graduate, I wasn't going to be funneled into one type of position or one type of company or anything like that. I wanted to have a lot of flexibility, and ultimately now working in higher education, and specifically working with international students, global politics was like the perfect broad, major for me. And I was allowed to then, when I wrote my senior, or my...
Looks like you froze for just a second there, Abbie. Are you still with us? We'll give it a couple of seconds. You froze for just a couple of minutes, Abbie, so I don't remember which part you left off on, but...
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well,
It was
just
towards the end. It was towards the end of what you just said, the last couple of seconds of what you said.
but basically that even though I had chosen a broad master's program like global politics, when it came time to do my thesis, that was when I was able to really narrow it down, and I purposely focused on higher education, knowing that I wanted to come back to the States and work in higher education. So there's definitely a lot of, I think, there's a lot of value to taking some time off and reassessing and working a job that you may love or you may hate. That gives you kind of the fuel to go and do the next thing, whether it is to continue working or it is to go back to school.
I have another question within the Q&A. How would you suggest finding internships or job opportunities?
And I'm happy to chime in on that as well. Go ahead, Bella, if you can share from your own personal experiences as to what it is you did in terms of finding those opportunities.
Sure. I think LinkedIn is fantastic. I think Google is fantastic. Kind of a less direct way of answering that question. I kind of looked at these big organizations in my field like WWF or Conservation International or USAID, who I work for now, and I would just read the bios of people and would say like, that sounds awesome to me, or that sounds like the type of job that I would want to do. So like on LinkedIn, I would find, you know, like a senior management position that I was in no way qualified for as like a senior in college. But I would look for what types of experiences they were looking for. And then I would try to basically find internships or different work opportunities that matched either those positions or the types of, you know, the bios from people that I, you know, hope to emulate in my career. I don't know that that's like a specific search, but it does give you kind of good ideas in some direction if you are feeling like, oh my God, the world is so big, where do I even begin?
Yeah, I think I actually did the same thing with LinkedIn as well. I did 2 internships, both with previous Senator Bill Nelson's office, one in Jacksonville and then one at home in South Florida. And I think that also, if you know that you want to be in Jacksonville and you want to be in person, kind of learning about the different organizations and positions in your community. And I think that career services is a really good place to do that, especially during the kinds of career fairs, to see who is really looking. But right now is also a very unique time that for folks who maybe like have obligations in Jacksonville can do a lot of different kind of work that isn't just in Jacksonville. I was supposed to be doing, I'm actually on internship right now for school, and I was supposed to be in Loretto, Texas, but it worked out kind of nice because I'm getting to do the work that I want back at home, and I'm saving a lot of money on expenses. So I think that if there's folks who know they are going to remain in Jacksonville or have obligations in Jacksonville, it's a very specific time where there's a lot of positions that have become remote that weren't in the past.
One thing I'll just add real quick is during my master's program, I did I believe it's called VSFS, like Virtual Student Federal Service. It's basically an internship with the government, and it's all virtual. And I was able to do that from Sweden, and they have, I mean, I was shocked. This was pre-COVID, and they had hundreds, if not thousands, of different positions with different offices. And so that's definitely something to look into, because it's a year long. You do it for a couple hours a week, and you can do it as an undergraduate or a graduate student. And you can each year apply for a new program, which is really great.
And Abbie, someone's asking, what was the website you just referenced again?
I'll write the, it's the virtual, Virtual Student Federal Service, I believe, and I'll write that down. But if you type virtual intern government in Google, I'm sure it will come up.
And I would like to echo the comments made in regards to LinkedIn as a tool for searching for jobs and internships. I think it is an underutilized tool. that students will often consider. Someone was also, I think, asking in the chat, should they set up a LinkedIn profile? Absolutely. You're also able to connect with alum of various organizations as well. And if you're not savvy with LinkedIn and unsure, through the Career Success Center, we help you. You can make an appointment with us, virtual now, and we'll walk you through the steps on how to set up an effective profile. So keep that in mind. Another underutilized tool by students is Handshake. And Jessica just made a post in the chat providing the website. That is the university-wide job portal that connects students to jobs and internships. And with Handshake, it expands our reach to employers who don't typically or have not typically recruited at UNF. So it's a program we've been using for the last couple of years. It's a great resource. Again, it is underutilized. There are numerous internships and job opportunities. You can filter your search as you can in most job search engines. So do take advantage of both LinkedIn and Handshake. And if you need help or assistance, reach out to the Career Success Center. We're here to customize the service for you and get you the opportunities you need. And this is sort of a nice segue to another question that I have for the panel in regards to the importance of networking, listening to your stories, and by virtue of the fact that you are here, you were invited by one of your professors to be here. It shows and demonstrates you were engaged as a student. You were actively involved in different ways and left an impression. And so we, at the beginning of the session, it was announced about 2 events happening next week, the Osprey Career Fair and the Diversity Mixer. And quite honestly, our attendance is often not the levels that it could be. For whatever reason, students don't see the value in having those, well, typically face-to-face interactions. Now it will be virtual interactions, but having that engagement with employers beyond just sending in a resume or completing an application. Can you speak to the value of networking as a part of an internship or a job search process?
I can take a stab at it first. I work for a government agency, so I think networking is something that has been like shoved down my throat for some time. And I think I was really averse to it at first because it felt very formal and unnatural to me, even though I'm a like fairly outgoing, extroverted person. But I do see the value of it, but I don't want folks to feel pigeonholed into having like one-on-one coffees. I think it's really clear when folks come across as doing networking to kind of check a box if this is something that I'm supposed to be doing when I'm starting work somewhere or I'm looking for an internship. Rather than being intimidated by like the networking word, I think it's just like meeting people and learning about their careers. And I think if you're genuinely interested in what folks have to offer in terms of advice and insight to a specific career path or program, that comes across and, in my opinion, builds a much stronger kind of long-lasting or long-standing relationship than kind of those one-off coffee or like mixer conversations you have in those more formal settings. So I will say, yes, it is important, but don't let it become forced and don't be intimidated by that idea.
Yeah, I really want to echo that. As someone who is like less outgoing and like a little bit more quiet, I am not a fan of networking, to be honest, but I loved getting involved at school. I loved working at the Career Center while I was at school. And I think what I found after undergrad is kind of like quality over quantity, kind of finding like your people and staying really in touch with your few people that you know. Like I have like a couple of mentors that like I love going to, and I also have quite a few like mentees that I am always available for any time of the day, because they told me like, I am really interested in taking a similar path as you. Can I keep checking in with? Absolutely. And I have some mentors that I've worked for or worked with aside, and I say, hey, you know, I have some specific questions I would really like to talk to you about. And if they're eager to answer those questions, kind of just trying to maintain those relationships. And I've found that to be so helpful and important.
And you know, something I'll mention as we're coming to the last 5 minutes or so within our session. Time is going by so quickly, and there's so much rich information being shared. So again, I will put out another encouragement to students to enter questions in the chat or Q&A. What I'll ask the panelists to consider and do at this point, you know, you're talking to students who, again, they are where you were just a few years ago, and you've progressed in different ways. My question to you would be, is there something that you wish you would have known then that you know now that would have been helpful for you as you were planning your career? Or you could take it from the angle of, you know, any last bit of advice you want to offer, or the best advice you've ever received that you think has been helpful to you as you progress personally and professionally.
I would say that there are just so many different things you can do. You know, like I had mentioned this VSFS, Bella mentioned in the chat, there's a United Nations volunteer. There's just so many things you can do. I mean, always, it's just really incredible, whether it's, you know, going overseas now in the age of COVID online. And so I think just Googling so much. I have actually made a resource I volunteered with an organization with high school students who were high school exchange students. And when they came back, we were looking for ways to encourage them to just stay involved with the international community. And I just compiled a huge list of different things I had found that either I had done myself, or I wish I had done, or people I know had done. And so between, you know, Fulbright, Boren, so many things with the government, different scholarships, there's just so much you can do. And you know, I felt like I did a lot in college, but I also look back and was thinking, oh my gosh, I could have done so much more, and had I just known. So I think definitely if you know anyone who has done a cool experience, pick their brain, ask them, you know, what else have you done? Have you heard of anything else? Feel free to email me. I can have Professor McCarl send out my contact information. I can share my list with you. Or you can pick my brain about higher education or nonprofits if you're interested in that. But I definitely think Google. Or stalking people on LinkedIn also works very well too. I think that's your best bet.
Yeah, echoing that, it's not weird to stalk people on LinkedIn, and if it is weird, I guess you can blame it on us on this panel. I also would like to say that it's not weird to ask people to coffee to just pick their brain. I think that was always like a weird thing for me to like initiate, and I assumed that people didn't want to get a coffee with me because I didn't feel like I had much to contribute. But I think once you're in whatever field, you're eager to give back and you're eager to inspire people to do similar work to you. So it's not a strange request. Maybe it is right now because of COVID, but a virtual coffee or tea works just as well. Some of the best advice, going back to the original question, I don't know if it's advice or more than a quote, more so a quote, to be interesting, you have to be interested. And I hope by tuning into this session, you all are already interested. But to that point, kind of taking it a step further, don't be afraid to pursue something just because you don't see an immediate like reward or immediate career path after it. I think something I wish I had known younger, early on in my academic or professional careers, there are so many careers that we don't even know of or aren't marketed to us. When I was changing my major, the end of my junior year, I remember my mom saying, like, do jobs exist in that field? And perhaps I was a bit stubborn or headstrong, and I said, I don't know, but if there aren't, I want to make one. And it ended up serving me well because there are so many different careers that happen at the intersection of what I do, but kind of we get stuck in these little bubbles that we don't realize kind of the world is truly our oyster. So don't be afraid to create kind of your own path in whatever you study / pursue in terms of a career. Thanks.
I think, yeah, I would definitely want to tell my younger self just to like listen to your gut and really be true to yourself. I felt like, especially towards the end of undergrad, I was getting a lot of advice about what I should do and what I should pick. And I kind of felt a little bit torn in that, but ultimately, you know what you're good at, you know yourself best, and kind of learning about yourself through different positions, whether if that's volunteer positions or work experience, to better understand where you are a best fit. And if you're interested in seeking a higher degree, but I don't think that you need to, even if you are studying something like international studies, because there is a lot of opportunities to do this work with your degree. So kind of trying some different things out and finding what works best for you, I think is really important.
Abbie, Sarah, and Bella, thank you so much for sharing this time with us and sharing your insight, information, the resources that you provided as well has been truly beneficial for our students. I'd like to also remind students that career counselors are available for you through the College of Arts and Sciences Career Success Center to have customized conversations, to learn not only more about the resources you've heard today, but about additional resources that are available to you to make this easy. We're here to help you and make this process of decision-making and implementation easier for you. So take advantage of those services. If nothing else, thank you so much for coming. Thank everyone for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful remainder of your day. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much.